Hello. Um, this is just sort of a video log type thing. I have been living in a 80-foot square cabin for 3 days now. And there are some projects I have been working on. Number one is installation. We have some styrofoam. And I've been installing that in the ceilings. Number two was installing a heat shield because in the corner of my cabin I put the alcohol or kerosene stove. I have two stoves. I have an alcohol stove and a kerosene stove. The alcohol stove is, in my opinion, it's good for keeping a consistent temperature in somewhat moderate weather. So like right now, for example, it might be 40 degrees and I got my alcohol stove running and it's going to keep it a nice 70 degrees or so. When it gets really cold, I'm going to appreciate the kerosene heater, which, if you got that thing, it's rated to heat 1,000 square feet. And so I have 80 square feet here, so it's way overkill. But if there's ever a time in the future, I can imagine a winter where it's really cold. If there's ever a time in the future I need to heat up my space and it's really cold, then the kerosene heater is going to be the tool for that job. What else? I built a beer can alcohol stove with the help of a really good YouTube video. And it was made by some travelers. My first alcohol stove was a bit janky. It wasn't level, so you couldn't set a pot on top of it, and there was a chance that it would slide off, which is not good. So my second beer can stove I built is a bit more level, and it also is a bit larger, so it can hold more fuel for cooking tasks like boiling wild rice. That takes a lot of BTUs. If you want to boil some wild rice, it takes some BTUs, man. So yeah, I did that. I split some wood today. There was a few rounds. Well, I sawed and split some wood today. So there was a long log that was maybe about 12 inches in diameter. And I sawed it up into reasonable sections, and then I split it with a 9-pound maul. And I did not have a splitting log. Normally when you split wood, you find a big thick log that you can set on the ground, and you put the logs that you want to split on top of that, and you split down. But I didn't have that, so I was splitting right into the ground. Got lots of dirt on my maul. But a maul doesn't need to be sharp to split wood, so I didn't really care that much. In other news, the dog... I went to take my recyclables out, and I went into the nearest town, which is about 5 miles away from me. And it's a very small town. It's only about population is about 78 people. And the dog jumped into the car with me, and I took off. And as soon as I unloaded my recyclables, the dog was out the hatch of the hatchback. And she was off into neighbors' farms, into the town I was in. She was making friends with other dogs, and saying hi to people and running away. And oh, it was pretty stressful to keep track of her. And I was having I would say a minor panic attack during this time, because I'm thinking, okay, if she gets into a cattle field, she's going to be shot. If she encounters the wrong dog, she's going to get into a fight, and that could lead to injury, and we'd have to treat that. And then she could also run out into the road, which she did. She did do a few times. She ran out onto the road and get hit by a car. And so those are the three main concerns that were running through my mind as I tried to corral the dog, and that was not working. I had a couple treats in my pocket, and I was, waving them around, and that was having no effect. But we eventually she got tired. Actually, she found some cattle, and she couldn't get through the fence, and she was running back and forth along the fence line, and cattle were chasing her, and she was chasing the cattle, and it was just crazy. It was a little bit fun to watch if I hadn't have been so anxious about some farmer coming out and shooting her. But she got tired. She ran into town and encountered a neighbor's dog. And I didn't have a collar on her, so I grabbed her by the scruff of the neck while she was intrigued with this neighbor's dog, and I started walking her back to my car, which was not a short walk. It was probably about 300 yards to get back to my vehicle. But thankfully, my older brother came to the rescue. We had a phone conversation as the situation was unfolding, and he came into town with his truck, and I was able to chauffeur my dog, or it's not my dog, it's technically my mother's dog. Chauffeur the dog into the truck, and he took off back home, and everything was fine. But I don't know. It's just like, okay, if I'm gonna get into the car with the dog, I'm gonna have a leash on her, because she could escape through the hatch or the door pretty easily. What else is going on? I'm watching a lot of YouTube videos on bushcraft and survival, and I'm not really sure that's necessary for me. I can walk, if I walk 5 minutes from this spot down the hill, I've got electricity, running water, food, shelter, heat. So I'm not exactly in an emergency situation. So I'm not sure it's worth my time to learn these bushcraft skills. Like today, for example, I watched a number of videos on how to split wood with a knife. I have a nice, solid, fixed blade knife. It's like a $60 knife. And you can use that to split wood. You just, whack the knife into the wood, and then whack the knife with a piece of log or something, and drive it through, and you got some split wood. So I watched some videos on that, and then I watched some videos on why that's a bad idea. About how you should create a wedge from a piece of wood and use that instead of abusing your knife. So that's just something to think about, I suppose. Anyways, those are my thoughts for the night. I hope you all have a good life, and with that final sip of whiskey, I shall sign off.